you're expanding, you need to decenter your parents or lack thereof in order to hold that expansion. And I'm sure you've heard it everywhere. When you decenter men or romantic relationships in your life, you will activate your power. You know, you will become rich as fuck. You will become powerful. You will be abundant. Your dream life, you'll glow, all these things. But the next step to that, right, the next challenge that helps you hold everything that you've gained, right, that helps you continue your healing, that keeps you consistent and certain on your path, is actually decentering the relationships that raised you. Welcome back to day 5 of my Divine Feminine Core Wound Healing series. Today we're talking about something that not a lot of people like to talk about, especially in the spiritual community, and that is the parental wounds. I know there's a big move on decentering your twin flame, decentering men, and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't take care of your core wounds, you're never going to be able to hold that expansion. And this is actually something that I see in my clients that keeps them stuck, that freezes them in their growth journey. So we're going to get into it today. How do you break out of these dynamics? Where do they come from? What are the spiritual lessons and the practical next steps that you can take towards your healing and getting yourself unstuck today? My name is Soledad. You guys can call me Soul. That is my real name. I'm a psychic and a spiritual ascension coach. And if you don't know what spiritual ascension is, essentially it is the process of letting go of an old identity so that you can build a new identity and new roads can open up for you so that you can upgrade and level up your life, spiritually speaking, right? So, parental wounds. Let's get into parental and maternal wounds, or lack thereof, are the reason that you start to feel guilt and shame as you expand beyond your limits and beyond the person that you were raised to be. Sure, you can guess it, these wounds start at childhood because our first identities aren't built around our lovers, they're built around our parents or lack thereof. If your mother figure was emotionally unavailable, immature, critical, or overwhelmed, you learn to shrink. You learn to become the people pleaser, the caretaker. You learn to manage other people's emotions and expectations. You learned that, and also, like, you may have been the independent one, the easy one, the smart one, the quiet one, right? You may have been the good girl. You may have even grown up being shy. If your father was unpredictable, absent, withholding, or controlling, you learned to earn love. You learned to perform for it. You learned to stabilize other people's emotions. And if you grew up with a single parent like I did, I grew up with a single mom and just very unhealthy masculine figures in my life. And I grew up the oldest of 3. So not only was I a parentified child, I was very independent because I had a huge age gap between me and my brother and sister. So my mom always saw me as the smart one. Other adults saw me as an old soul, as an independent child. And it was so wrong because there were a lot of times where I felt, and I see this in my clients too, where adults were like, oh, they're fine, they're independent, or they're not gonna cause any trouble, right? But no adult should ever assume, ever, that a child is fully capable of taking care of themselves fully, let alone be in charge of taking care of others fully. So from childhood, your nervous system was trained to earn love instead of unconditionally receive love. And this is your basis. This is your safety net. So when you're starting to decenter your parental wounds, decenter your dynamics with your parents, and decenter relationships that raised you, you're gonna start to break away at your core foundation for safety. That's why it feels like grief for a lot of us, me and my clients included, right? That's why it feels so uncomfortable, because it's not meant to be easy. You're literally building a whole new identity. You're kind of reparenting yourself and re-raising yourself. I don't know if you've ever used this strategy, but I went to a therapist who taught me about this strategy, and she said you could do self-soothing. Actually, if you're a Justin Bieber fan, hello, he does this as well. He talked about it in his documentary, right? And he's another child that was quickly thrust upon, all of this public praise. I didn't think I was going to talk about him, but this is where spirit is leading me. We're just going to go into it. But he was thrust into fame, right? And he grew up with his parents being split up and him being the main breadwinner, right? Being surrounded by all of these adults that thought that he could handle it, and he's so talented and he's so independent. But later on in life, now he's starting to see the consequences. Not only is his health depleting, which a lot of old souls and divine feminines, you'll go through a phase in your life where your health concerns start to become unmanageable, and it kind of keeps you stuck, right? Earlier on in your spiritual awakenings. But moving past that, when you start to break out of that, that's where your safety net is being challenged. That's why subconsciously your inner child is like, we can't do this. We can't defy our parents. We can't defy these core belief systems that we built our life upon. That's why it feels weird and uncomfortable. And that's why you end up freezing, because part of you is still trying to hold on to the old. Part of you is still trying to hold on. And you think that you can do it both, like Hannah Montana. You think you can have the best of both worlds. And I love how I'm referencing so many children's icons, right? Like Hannah Montana, Justin Bieber. I'm like in the middle between Gen Z and millennials. So I was born 97. So it is kind of weird to be in the in-between of both. But the reason I mention all of this is because inner child healing is so important when you are spiritually ascending. And you may think you would have already done some of this healing. You may already be in therapy. You may already know what meditation is, right? You may have gotten even readings. You may have some of your gifts awakening, right? You may be on track to changing, and you feel like you're taking the right steps to doing that. But until you take this step, until you confront this wound, you're going to keep feeling stuck. And as an adult, this wound is going to keep showing back up. Okay, you're going to feel guilt for your own success. You're going to feel guilt for feeling happy. How many of you, let me know, like this video or leave me a comment, that you feel uncomfortable with joy and happiness? And if you express happiness and someone's like, oh, why are you feeling so happy today? It almost feels like a betrayal to yourself. You kind of freeze, and it's almost like you want to minimize, right? You start doing that kind of controlling of, oh no, it's not that big of a deal, right? You try to minimize your situation. You maybe even will try to take it back, or you'll freeze and you won't know what to do about it or how to respond in that way. Maybe you do self-deprecating jokes like I used to do all the time, which leads me to my second symptom. You will over-explain yourself. You will feel responsible for other people's emotions. We were talking about being a people pleaser, right? Being an overgiver, being the caretaker. How many of you have even been called the mom or the dad of your friend group? How many of you are scared to disappoint others? How many of you start to sabotage your expansion right when things start working? And you may even feel down on yourself. You may say to yourself, oh, I'm just being lazy, oh, I'm self-sabotaging. And you kind of feel insane. You're like, why am I doing this to myself, right? And it's not because you're lazy. It's because you're healing. It's because you're expanding. And it's because subconsciously for a lot of you, you still believe that if you outgrow them, that you will lose love and you will lose belonging, which are the two things that your safety net, that your inner child is terrified of losing. Is the spiritual lesson. Now that we know where it comes from and how it continues to manifest and follow you into adulthood, this is actually a really cool part, because if you didn't know, we all have divine feminine and masculine energies within us. And this is kind of where the divine feminine and masculine merge, right? If you are resonating with everything that we're talking about, then you probably resonate with being the generational curse breaker of your family, right? Because you expanding and outgrowing them isn't betraying them. It's actually breaking the curses that they couldn't. So the maternal wound will block your divine feminine gifts because it directly affects the way that you receive love, the way that you show up, the way that you express your softness, the way that you receive nourishment, the way that you allow others to pour into you. Your paternal wound will block your divine masculine energy because it directly affects your ability to feel safe, your ability to step into your power, okay, your ability to step into leadership roles, to become the leader that you know you're meant to be, to lead yourself, to lead others. In my opinion, most importantly, and the blockage that I see the most when you have a divine masculine blockage within you, which stems from a paternal wound, is you will feel lost. You will feel like you don't know what your purpose is in this life. So as you can see, this work isn't just about the emotional healing. If it was, then the therapy would have worked by now, right? This is about rewiring your identity. So the spiritual lesson here is you don't abandon your parents when you grow, you abandon the role that you were forced to play. And when that role finally breaks, oh my God, it's literally 333 right now as I'm talking. So maybe that's an angel number you're seeing. That is a sign that you are expanding, that your angels are helping you in this expansion. But once you finally break that role, that is when you give yourself the space to not only manifest authentically, so you're not manifesting from survival. How many of you have ever manifested something and been like, oh my God, this is not actually what I wanted? How many of you have manifested the life that you thought you wanted and ended up still feeling unfulfilled and miserable and unhappy? And then you feel guilty for feeling ungrateful and unhappy for it, right? This is the kind of work that I help my clients through in my soul integration program. It's giving you permission to step into alignment without guilt, without any shame, so that your soul finally has the room to emerge, so that you can finally call back your power and step into your purpose. Okay, so we're getting serious now. Practical steps on how to move forward after you finish watching this video. I'm also going to be leaving journal prompts in the comments, and you can check out the description box for more stuff. But I got notes here. Okay, I came prepared. So number one, I want you to sit with the guilt. Okay? Don't run from it, because remember what we talked about earlier, it is your job to reparent yourself. So let your inner child know you are safe to grow now. You can hold your hand at your heart. And actually, I'm glad we're talking about this, because the reason I brought up Justin Bieber is because self-soothing through like touches, giving yourself a hug, or rubbing your arm, rubbing your legs, that was the point I was trying to make earlier. So step number two, redefine what loyalty means to you, because you wouldn't be feeling all this guilt and all this shame if you weren't a good-hearted, loyal person, right? If you weren't gifted with being able to see the best in all. So loyalty does not mean that you have to self-sacrifice. That's the first rewiring. Loyalty is not self-sacrifice. Loyalty is breaking the cycle so that no one else has to repeat it, right? So that you're not passing down your trauma to the next generation and expecting them to do all the work the way your parents did to you. Number three, you're gonna have to reparent your emotional needs, okay? I want you to ask yourself daily, what do I feel? What do I need? What do I want? This is a daily practice. You can do this in the mornings. You can journal on it, okay? And it seems really simple, but these are the building blocks to your next level. These are the building blocks to you rewiring your identity. So please take this seriously. You have to start out small. Rome was not built in a day. And then number four, you embody your new identity little by little. Right? So little things that you can start practicing is say no sooner. Receiving help allowing yourself to receive help without apologizing for it, right? Allowing yourself to take up space without apologizing for it. Choosing rest without guilt. This is a big one for me. I'm such a workaholic and it's such a big one for me, but it's important for you to take rest. Rest is productive. Rest is when your body gets to heal, when it gets to recalibrate, when you start to feel safe. And let yourself take up space. This is how you start to cultivate a new identity for yourself, right? This is how abundance comes to you with ease, and it becomes something that you do on autopilot and not something that's forced, not something that you have to constantly affirm, constantly go back to. The clients that I work with, we start off with EFTs, right? But after a while, it just gets ingrained in your subconscious. And so you shouldn't feel guilty if you're not there yet. These are the first steps. Yeah, because if you're realizing right now that you were living from survival, and if this video could help you even just a little bit, then the last thing I have to say is start living from your own self-expression. You got this. I believe in you. And I will see you for day 6 of my Divine Feminine Healing Core Wound series here. I definitely said that wrong, but thank you for being here for the journey. I'm thinking of doing day 6 and day 7 as one of them has to be a money wound. We have to heal the money wound. We need to put money and power back into the hands of good-hearted, amazing awakened souls and divine feminines like you. So that's a big part of my mission here as well. But the other one is kind of open-ended. I have a few ideas, so I might do a poll, but if you have any ideas of any core wounds that I haven't covered, or one that maybe you want me to go deeper on, leave me a comment.